All right, guys, so this is by far the coolest bag I think I have made to date so far. It's cool because it's a little bit more on that practical side than what I've been making previously. It's very exciting. It's the kind of the style of bag that I've been wanting to make. I want to continue make going forward, where we're mixing in that leather and that canvas. So the whole purpose of this video here is kind of an add-on to the first video where we actually made the bag. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, there will be a link in the card up above for that. But what I recommend is you go watch that and then you watch this. It'll make a little bit more sense, kind of the things that we're talking about here. Because what I want to do in this video is go through and talk about things that didn't go right. Things that didn't go right, but also some things that did go right. So the first thing is the overall design of this bag. I actually really like it. But what I will add to that as a little bit of a caveat is that I didn't predict my sizing very well. I was expecting this bag to be a little bit smaller in size physically. Again, I was working off of like actual known dimensions. The bag is about 14 inches wide by X inches tall. I don't remember exactly, but it has those fixed dimensions, and I managed to match the dimensions to what I had planned. The only trick is that what I'd planned out ended up being a bit larger than I would expect. So what I would do differently with this same bag if I was to redesign it is just take about 2 inches off the width. Right now, like I said, it's about 14 inches wide. I'd make it about 12 inches, and I just think that would fit the human body a little bit better. Because what I found while I've been carrying this thing, just out walking my dog and whatnot, is that the bottom corners kind of stick out past your waist, which, again, not the worst thing in the world, but also, not the greatest. Other than that, the bag, everything on here was just kind of perfect. Everything went to planned. Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty happy with it. Now, other features of this thing that I really like, this front flap, this whole idea, I do quite like it. Also, it's very, very important to mention, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I'll mention it again here. This bag is directly inspired by one of my favorite bag designers, Not Less or Equal. You can find him on Behance, Instagram. I don't know if he's on YouTube, but I'll try and find links to all of his social media and put them in the description below, because this bag is a direct, I'm not gonna say a direct copy, but I was trying to figure out how he makes one of his bags that I absolutely love. So it was directly inspired by his work, and I wanna make that very clear. Not a completely original concept, but definitely my own original approach to mimicking one of his designs. I think that's the best way to put it. So anyway, we've got this nice big top flap. This is great because it'll kind of protect everything in the bag. Plus it gives you some options. I put some extra length on those straps there, so if you wanted to roll up a jacket and stuff it in there, you've got that option. Then on the inside of the bag, we've got our main pocket, which is all just made from this 15-ounce canvas. And then we've also got this front flap here, which can add just a little bit of extra storage. Again, you could stuff a jacket in there, some loose stuff, whatever it is. It isn't closed on the sides, which is one of the things I think I might approach differently in the future. And this is also where I differed from Not Less or Equal, the way that he designed his. In his bag, this part was made from canvas, which I'd probably is a better idea. But I had this one piece of leather that had this branding mark on it, and I figured it would kind of be perfect for this because, it's not something I want to use on any other part of a bag that's exposed. So here, where we're covering it up, it kind of just made sense. Then kind of moving to the side of the bag, we've got some compression straps. So again, these ones, I love them and I kind of hate them at the same time. I'm a little 50-50 on it. I still have a very hard time trusting leather, the strength of leather, I'll say, just because it just doesn't seem like it's super strong material. I know that it is, and I do know that leather has been used for hundreds of years. So these are 3/4 inch straps that I have going on the side here. Again, right now, they just feel a little bit weak to me, but at the same time, I think that they will be just fine. So far, I haven't had any issues with them. It's just one of those kind of perception things. Much like when I started out with woodworking, a 3/4 inch, stretcher can seem very thin, but then, over time, you kind of start to realize that wood is strong, and I'm hoping that I kind of figure out the same thing with leather. Yeah, so that's the kind of the exterior. Moving around to the back side here. Again, one of the things I really liked is with the overall shaping of this bag. So basically what we did, we took a nice big flat piece of canvas, stitched a bunch of leather pieces on it, and then kind of made a tube out of that. And that idea actually worked really well. The only trick is that this back seam here, this middle seam, It's a little bit on the rough side because, again, first time doing it, not surprising that it's a little bit rough, but it's one of those things that the more I do it, I think it'll work out better. But what I do like about this way of creating that bag shape, because again, there's so many different ways to create that shape of a bag, is that it kind of puts this hollow right where your spine is. So it means that, you don't have to worry about the bag pushing in on your spinal column. And I know for, certain people that might not be a big issue, but for me, I'm a very scrawny, bony guy. Right? My spine is fully exposed whenever I lean over or anything like that. So it can be uncomfortable if a bag is putting too much pressure there. But in this case, we've got this kind of hollowed area, so it kind of fits around your spine, which is very interesting. I also have put in that little bit of padding just within the leather there. And again, it's not much. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's going to help kind of contour the back panel here to your back a little bit better. So it helps kind of even out the pressure just a little bit. And one of my absolute favorite features of this bag that I put in here, and again, this is something that I haven't actually seen on any other leather bags that I've looked at, which is kind of funny, is these shaped straps. Now, there's probably a better term for it, but basically the pattern for these straps, I bought a set of plans to make an actual like hiking bag, like it's meant to be made with like Cordura fabric and all this stuff. It's meant to be more of like an outdoorsy hiking style bag, which most leather backpack plans that you can buy aren't that. So when I was looking for straps, I really liked the way that these would fit the human body. That's the big thing for me, is kind of considering how this bag is going to feel when it's worn, because obviously I want to make a thing that is going to be used. And so what I found is, as soon as I cut the shape of these, and I made a few test samples in that, I played with some different thicknesses of leather. Honestly, I have my samples here somewhere. I have no idea where they've ended up now. But I tried a really thick veg tan leather. I tried a single layer of this 6-ounce chrome tan leather. And what I found was the best was just 2 layers of 6-ounce chrome tan leather. This gives a nice flexibility. I also staggered the thickness or the widths of the 2 pieces. One is just slightly scaled down to allow for just a little bit of a ridge here. Again, just adds a little bit more flexibility to it, which I find works just really, really nicely. So this is by far one of the best things I figured out on this bag, is these straps. Again, they just make it so much more comfortable, because what I have found a lot of times, even on other like really high-end bags that I've used for hiking in the past, if the straps are too square, they tend to really cut into your shoulders. And on other leather bags, like I've made, I don't know if I showed a video about it actually, but I made one other leather backpack before where it had straps, and I literally just made 2 long rectangles, and that thing sucks to carry. You feel those, they kind of conform to your body, but they really just kind of dig in. So these shaped straps are just an absolute perfect example of what I want to do with my bag making going forward. And I will add to that another idea that I did steal from Not Less or Equal. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm copying everything he did, but I don't even know if the bag that I initially took inspiration off of used this idea. But in the top here, you guys probably saw it in the video, I used a metal bar. And this is actually a really cool thing. Initially, I thought it was a really bad idea because you don't want a chunk of metal sticking into your neck. But this part sits far enough down in your back that you don't even notice it. And it adds this awesome amount of kind of rigidity to the top of the bag. It kind of helps add some extra form. So that's definitely something I'm going to be using more in the future. The only difference I would do, again, is I would either look for maybe brass, aluminum, or titanium, one of those 3 metals to use in here instead. I use steel in here right now, and the more that I think about it, the more of a bad idea I think that this is. Now the nice thing is that leather does hold a decent amount of oil, and as long as I kind of keep putting oil on that area, I shouldn't have to worry about that steel rusting. But there is that potential that steel could rust and ruin the leather completely. That's the only real thing. It's not like it's going to break or break down at any point in time, but again, it's also a little bit heavier, so that's where something like aluminum or titanium would be better. Only difference is titanium would be super hard to work with, and aluminum is a little bit harder to get. So either way, steel was just kind of the easiest option at this point in time. But overall, again, this bag came together just kind of the way that I expected it to. Nothing here is too bad. What also I will add to that is that it's a lot bigger than I thought. I think I mentioned this earlier in the video actually, but even, so outside of the overall size, the internal space is just significantly larger than even I was expecting it to be. We've got a ton of stuff put in here right now. I've got 2 large wool blankets stuffed in here right now, and this thing is pretty much fully compacted down. I've got the side straps pretty much fully tightened up. We've got everything, you know, I can tighten the straps on the front lid fully. I can fit a ton of stuff in here. And that kind of brings me to one of my next critiques about this bag specifically, in that if I was gonna make a bag this size again, I would make sure I have some kind of a hip belt, because again, me being a very scrawny guy, I don't have a lot of meat up here, so anytime I'm carrying a bag on my shoulders for too long, it tends to dig in and just cause a lot of pain anyway. So having a hip belt would just kind of keep things a little bit more secure and help kind of distribute the weight a little bit better. Because that is one of the things I have found when I'm carrying this thing and I've got it packed full of stuff. It tends to, the bottom side kind of tends to bounce outwards, and I personally just find that a bit annoying. But again, the overall size of this thing it makes a really good bag. Like with a few improvements here and there, you could make a very capable hiking, you know, like overnight almost bag out of this style that I've got here. And that's one of the things I may actually end up looking into developing, if that's proper English, is that this kind of body or this kind of style of bag is something that I would actually like to try and figure out how to make something that I could potentially sell, because it's very much so a handcrafted bag. It takes a lot of time and effort to put it together. And I think that's what honestly makes it super cool, because especially if you start considering a lot of the features and that go into it, you know, it's not like I'm going to try and compare myself to, you know, Arc'teryx or like these outdoor brands that are like super meant for like hiking Mount Everest and whatnot, or, you know, North Face, whatever. That's not kind of the goal. The goal here is very much so, you know, it's a user experience type product. You know, leather is one of those things. Leather and canvas, they're very heavy, they're very bulky. You know, you're never gonna you're not gonna reach that kind of like ultra light type of you know, outdoor gear that a lot of people are going for these days. But what you're gonna get is that kind of rugged, nice feeling experience. And honestly, depending on who you are, that might be exactly what you want in a hiking / outdoor camping type bag. And yeah, so something like this would be, you know, with adding that hip belt on there, with adding maybe a little bit better compression, a little bit more internal organization and whatnot, this would be a very good bag for just doing like an overnight, you know, backpacking trip. You know, you throw a small sleeping bag, you know, food, maybe a small like lightweight tent or something in there. Or if you just want to sleep in your jacket, you know, if you want to go like full traditional style camping, you know, backpacking, you know, you could easily stay a night with a bag this size, because again, there's tons of room in here. I might try and measure the liters at some point in time, and if I do, I'll add that to the description. But overall, it's just a really big bag, and I like it. I like it a lot because it's kind of exactly what I was aiming for. Again, there's all those little things that I've talked about where, you know, things I would do differently. But again, that's the whole purpose of kind of this video and this whole series of videos going forward, is kind of looking back at the project and analyzing what I would do differently. And if for no one else's benefit, at least I can look back at these videos and kind of, you know, understand that there's definitely something I would do different next time. So that brings us to the end of this project officially. This is going to be a bag that I'm going to try and use for a long time now, honestly, until I make my next bag that I really like, because I kind of want to see what wear and tear happens to this thing. That is kind of the biggest thing that I'm kind of struggling with or trying to figure out right now as I get more into making these leather bags, is how do things react over time? How do certain parts of the bag break down? You know, is this top part of the canvas going to break down before the bottom? You know, stuff like that. Or am I going to wear out the bottom of the leather here before anything on the canvas rips? You know, it's just kind of figuring out these little things. And I'm very excited because, again, this is a nice bag. I'm going to be carrying it for a very long time, and I think I did a pretty good job on it. So if you guys have any ideas, anything you think I should do differently if I was to remake this bag in the future that I haven't touched on this video ideally, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, because I love hearing your guys' advice. You guys usually can provide me with some ideas that, you know, I've never even thought of. So if you guys have any advice or suggestions, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But as always, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.